So my diagnosis is OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. Um, Sharing this diagnosis actually was a huge relief for me. Um, it's a chronic illness, so it's something that had been going on in my life for a few decades, and I had no idea what it was. So when I actually had a name for it, a professional, a doctor said, this is what's going on, I was really happy, and actually happy to tell some people close to me in my life. The first person I told was my boyfriend. I called him from that appointment because he knew I had an appointment with a psychiatrist that day. And I said, your girlfriend has OCD. And he said, sounds about right. So he was not at all surprised. He was very supportive. And the next big person I told was my mom. She lives 3 hours away, so I had to call her to tell her instead of sitting down with her, and I think that was fine. I made sure, just in case she was upset, say, are you sitting down? I just, I'm okay, everything's fine, but I did just get this diagnosis, and it explains a lot of things for me. I'm relieved. I'm looking forward to moving on with my life and to kind of getting this figured out. So that was great. No issues there. The troubles I ran into were actually related to everything that came after the diagnosis. So I was okay saying, I have OCD. Nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be embarrassed about in its core. But if anyone asked me personal questions like, oh, really? Like, does that mean your house is really clean? Or, give me an example of an obsession you had. Then I wanted to clam up a little bit because my obsessions were really terrible. They were intrusive, taboo obsessions, not the kind of thing that you tell people on a regular basis, on, a kind of an acquaintance, coworker basis. So that part was hard. And even telling my friends, who I wasn't ready to tell my friends yet, the nature of all my obsessions, that was the most difficult part, was getting down to the details of what my diagnosis meant in my life, and not so much like, I have this disorder. So what I did with my boyfriend, who is now my husband, was have him read a book that I really identified with. It was called The Imp of the Mind, and it was all about taboo, intrusive thoughts, just like I had been dealing with. And so I could distance myself a little bit from those thoughts, but still tell my boyfriend what he needed to know and what I needed him to understand about me and what I'd been going through. So then he could read these case studies and stories about someone just like me, but not me, who had kind of horrific obsessions, and had a really hard time with those. So that's one method that I recommend for other people, is if you're not ready to put yourself out there, you can always say, hey, here's this really cool article, I really relate to it. Or you don't even have to connect yourself to that at all. You can just share an article and not put any commentary to it. Just throw it out there on your Facebook page or whatever, and let people know about the diagnosis, or about the illness, before you start attaching yourself personally to it. I think that's a great way to go about that. It's been hard to tell casual acquaintances and coworkers about it because of the follow-up questions. Oh, I think I have that too, my closet's really organized. It's frustrating because you kind of have to decide on a case-by-case basis how much you want to educate that person that day and how much you just want to let it go and say they didn't mean anything by it. And since I have written a book about my OCD and I speak about it, it's definitely something that comes up in conversation, and it's not something I want to hide, but if I did, it would be really difficult at this point, because it's like, oh, I'm taking a long weekend because I'm speaking at a conference, or, it's my book launch party, or whatever. So these things kind of come up naturally, and I know that's not going to happen for everyone. Not everyone's going to start, being on a platform for their illness, but it's great when you get to that point of just being like, this is who I am. I mean, it doesn't define me, but I'm not ashamed of it, and I'm willing to talk about it. And you can decide what details you want to share and what you don't feel comfortable sharing. It doesn't, it's your life. You can tell who you want, what you want, when you want. And I think it just makes things easier when the people around you, who are you close with, do know, so that they know how to support you. Maybe if your boss knows because you're having a bad day and maybe you just need to stay home that day, or you're having medication issues. I mean, letting people in actually helps you. It helps them help you. So I really recommend that. And sharing my diagnosis has turned out to be a wonderful experience. I never thought I would talk about it as much as I have. It's kind of crazy. So I encourage it. I hope you share your diagnosis too.